Welcome to the Bookish Ballerina Podcast, where we talk about ballet, stories, art, science, economics, music, and everything in between. I'm your host, Eleanor Stewart, and I am a rather bookish ballerina.
Today, my guest is Kay Tien, the founder of Pivot Pointe, an organization aimed at providing resources for dancers as they transition into other career fields. We chat about Kay's goals and background, why she founded Pivot Pointe, and why such an organization is important. I hope you enjoy. Hello, and welcome to the Bookish Ballerina Podcast.
Hello. Hi, Eleanor.
All right. So to start off, what is your story, both in ballet and in life in general?
That's a big question, huh? That's supposed to have a concise answer. I would say my story is that I'm like a third cultured individual. I don't know if you've heard much about like a third culture kid. So when I say that, I mean also, being raised that way and also, career-wise. So I was born in Taiwan and then I was raised in New Zealand. And so I have this unique, I guess, perspective of both these cultures. And then I ended up, like many dancers, we kind of are nomadic.
Yeah.
So moved to Australia, then ended up in Germany, then ended up in America, and now back to Asia for the time being. So that's quite diverse in terms of like cultures. And then career-wise, I was a dancer, and then I transitioned out, and then ended up, working in the corporate world. And that is quite, in terms of the skill set that I've developed, is quite unique because it's like this interesting marriage of both worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think through these experiences, it's really enriched my life and understanding how complex the individual is, and that we not only have like, a chapter in our life, but we have, a series of chapters. And so through my own life and experience in the ballet world and outside, I'm really passionate about like helping others define their narratives and their chapters. And ultimately, that's kind of how I ended up doing the work that I do, specifically in career transition, because I want people to discover like their unlimited potential and to empower them in their stories. Yeah.
I love it. Awesome. What was it like, I guess, living in so many different places, and what was the transition from each place like? Because those are very different areas of the world.
Yeah, quite like literally in almost like every continent. Almost. It was, I think, so in Taiwan, obviously, like, I have this unique blend of like quite traditional values that my parents and my, extended relatives have. But then also I feel like I have very Kiwi values, and that's like remained kind of quite consistent throughout my life. But also being in these different countries, I think it's taught me like, I think I've taken maybe hopefully the positives of every place. I like the structure of Germans, and I think actually much in my own thinking and processing, I think quite like methodically and logically. But then also I lived in New York when I lived in the States. So I also like the directness of, New Yorkers, and how it's just to the point. There's no fuss, no fluff around, no sugarcoating. And I respond quite well to that. So, maybe like I've taken the best of, each place I've been in, but I've also really embraced the places that I've been in. So I'm very fortunate, and I recognize that. And I think also, I don't know if there's like a concept when people travel that like really opens up their perspective on things.
Yes.
And so I think anybody that's traveled, you don't need to live in a new country to experience something different. But I think traveling itself can really just like open yourself up to new experiences.
I love it. Awesome. And you said you transitioned eventually from ballet to the corporate world. So what prompted that transition? And then I guess where in the world were you at that transition as well?
Yeah. So, So I was in Germany at the time, and like once upon a time, I wanted to become a professional dancer. That's how it all began. But unfortunately, leading up to my final year, I got injured. So I had Achilles tendonitis in both Achilles. And while I could have like recovered and rehabilitated, just like because I was from New Zealand and, you know, the travel back and forth, like I knew that my parents would, you know, I come from a very conventional, traditional family. So like ballet was not my parents' number one choice for me in terms of careers. And so I always knew that I would have a shorter career than most. Like it was because looking at my sister's careers, you know, one's a pharmacist, one's a designer. I knew that, okay, if I wanted to have this career, it was going to be very short because I wanted to have a second life. So that is, sorry, linking back to your question again, I went off on a new tangent.
I love it. So, what prompted your transition? So you said you got injured.
Yeah, injured. Sorry. Yes.
Yes. And then how from there did you transition into the corporate world? What was that like?
Yeah. So then after quitting, because it was quite I quit. And then 2 weeks later, I just like started working at a design firm. I got a job to work at a design firm in Munich. And it was completely new to me. I had a lot of people, like my former classmates were like, what are you doing? Like, this is, you know, you're silly. You should take the contract. So I had a contract with the junior company of the Bavarian State Ballet. Oh. But I don't know. I think I was just like, I'm in pain. I'm unhappy. And I think a lot of dancers can really resonate with that. I just was like, I need to make a change. I want to stay in Germany. I wasn't done with my time there. I felt like there was so much more to discover about the country. I loved living in Europe. And so when I switched, it was I did hit the ground running. Unlike most dancers I've had, you know, in my teens, I think when I was 12, actually, I delivered newspapers. I worked in a bakery. I ended up working in retail. I managed a shoe shop. I worked in a market research company. Like this was while I was still dancing. So I think the transition was that I already had some sort of skills, like admin skills. So it wasn't that too crazy for me to then go into a design firm, because I then worked in artist management and I loved it. I soaked it up like a sponge, Eleanor. I was like, this is so incredible, because I also wanted to get far away from the ballet world. You know, I kind of just wanted to like reject this dancer identity, which in hindsight, it was not a good thing. But I hit the ground running. And at first it was like incredible because it was all new and dazzling, and I was learning so much. And dancers, we have so many great skills. So we learn very fast and very quickly, and we do become valuable, I would say, assets in any sort of organization. So yeah, at the beginning it was great. And like, I loved it. And I was also, well recognized for my work. And so I think it was good. I really enjoyed the corporate atmosphere, clearly, because I stayed in it for so long.
I see. So how long were you there?
So after leaving, I then just continued working and climbing up. So I started in an agency. Then I worked in another agency that was for PR, marketing, you know, for lifestyle and luxury brands. And then I ended up getting poached by one of the clients. And then from there, I just continued to work. And, you know, so it was from, then I went into public relations, events, and then ultimately ended up in marketing is where I fell in love. So that almost like I would say a decade. And then that happened, roughly then. And then I returned to the ballet world.
How from there did you get into, I guess, what you're doing now, Pivot Pointe? And then what was starting Pivot Pointe like? And then for those who aren't familiar, what is Pivot Pointe?
Yeah. So, what is Pivot Pointe? It's really inspired by my own journey and my own challenges, you know, through career transition. At the time, there was very little resource. My school didn't provide any, even like I didn't know what I had access to. So while I made such a sudden switch, you know, leaving the ballet world, I don't recommend that, because 2 weeks is very abrupt. And it also, you know, you have to put into context, right? So through that and throughout my corporate career and career in marketing, I had a lot of dancers like approach me, whether it be former classmates or friends, because once you're in the ballet world or dance world, you kind of don't leave. The network still very much remains intact, which is a beautiful thing about it, is that everyone's so connected. They would approach me about like, how did you make your career transition? And I would give feedback based on, my own experience, but I felt that it was quite early on in my career that I really only had like a very narrow view about career transition. And so that also inspired me to kind of jump from like when you work at an agency, it's going to be very different from when you work at a company. And then when you work at a nonprofit like Youth America Grand Prix, it's going to work vastly different from a for-profit company that's like focused on making, increasing revenue every year. And so even those nuances was quite interesting to me. And then also different industries. So like the ballet is like a genre within dance. Dance is in the performing arts. Performing arts is one industry out of many out there. And so I felt, so that kind of inspired me to build on my expertise and experience. And then, it wasn't really until I returned to the ballet with the dance world to work for YGP that I realized that through conversations that there was very little innovation around career transition. It was still very much a taboo topic. And, it was almost as if someone hit pause and then pressed play. And so I was like, okay, well, it's kind of now or never. And that kind of inspired me to then jumpstart. And, I had the idea brewing, I think, for the longest time in my head, but I'm really also glad that I worked in several different places to really understand, different industries, and also, refine my skills as well. Because I think in order for me to really cater to other dancers and their career transition needs, I need to really understand and be an expert in that field as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are some resources that y'all provide for dancers?
Yeah. By the way, I love y'all.
Sounding great.
Yeah. So I was going to say I really love it because we don't say that here. Well, so Pivot Pointe, there's like, it's founded upon like 3 pillars. So we have our career transitioning program called Dancer Index. Then we have the consulting, and then we have insights. So to talk more specifically about each category, Dancer Index is broken into 2 stages, so exploration and preparation. Exploration is our most popular program. It is, career transition made fun, I would say. I had designed it for a younger version of myself. I went through a year and a half, 2 years of research and development. So that was really important for me that I really understood what existed out there. If something exists, I also wanted to take a closer look at the effectiveness of it. Like, did it really help dancers, and in which ways, and also in which ways it didn't. Exploration, we have like 6 sessions. And it's really reverse engineers the whole process. So typically dancers, when they approach career transition, they like land on a career and then it's like, full speed ahead. We really want to uncover the individual, figure out who they are, what are their interests, what are their short-term, long-term goals, what are their values. It's not just like finding a career that you're happy with, but also finding like a purpose in your life. So we do a lot of that foundational work. And then I would say what's unique about this program is that we allow our students to, when I say students, they're dancers, to shop for industries. Because as I mentioned earlier, performing arts is one of them. So we really expose them to the realities of the industries in the modern workforce, because you wouldn't find a ballerina in like the airlines industry, or you wouldn't find them in, pirouetting and real estate. I mean, maybe if it's like for, an open home, they're doing some sort of showing and trying to make it creative, but like probably quite rare. So we let them shop and kind of expand their horizon. And then only then, once they narrow down which ones they're interested in, then we present them with on average about 60 to 80 careers, which is a lot. So from there, they really, and then maybe if we dive a little bit deeper, if I say I want to do marketing, because that's kind of like, my field, it's also important to understand how marketing works with, sales, because usually they work closely with one another. or other roles like communication, events, public relations. They all are in this ecosystem together. So that's why, so we're quite like, it's very comprehensive, very, very much in detail. And then we start to strategize their career path. So our graduates don't just graduate with one career path. We come up with other parallel paths that are complementary. And then preparation is all about the job search. So helping them create job search materials, helping them also formulate that new narrative that connects them from the dance industry to this new industry that they want to go to. We help them build that bridge of what makes sense for them. And so, so that's the career transition program. And then our consulting pillar, we have a roster of clients that, are doing amazing things in the dance landscape, whether that's pioneering a new method of training, making dance more accessible, or developing a new product. We help them with all areas in marketing and helping expand their global reach. Then the last pillar is insights. And that really came from actually me researching and speaking with dancers one-on-one. And I was, I'm sure, as a dancer yourself, we seek these resources online. We really connect with, stories. And so when I would speak with these dancers, they weren't principal dancers, some were, but, not everyone is. But I found that even apprentices or people in the quarter ballet had incredible stories, stories of being fired 2 times by the same director in 2 different companies. These are stories that you wouldn't necessarily hear about. And I just wanted to present them and celebrate also them overcoming those challenges, because I firmly believe that in order to get comfortable with the topic of career transition, we have to get uncomfortable first. And insights, is a section where it's, free for all. It's, fully accessible. I think whether a dancer works with us, on their career transition journey or not, if there's a story that connects with them and helps encourage them and inspire them to have that conversation early, or to even jumpstart, okay, I need to start, studying, or I need to start figuring out who I am beyond dance, I think that's a win for everyone.
Yes. How many clients do you typically have, I guess, and also how many do you have at a time? I guess they filter through to some degree for a limited point of time?
Do you mean through the career transition program or the consulting part?
The career transition program, and I guess also the consulting part. I guess, what are the differences in how the clientele works?
Yeah, so the career transition program, that will typically be one-on-one with me. Dancers can approach me individually because, as I mentioned, I wanted to make it accessible. There are certain career transition programs, or I would say organizations perhaps, that, exist in certain regions around the world. Some do it better than others. So some regions have it and some regions just don't have any sort of support. So they can come to me one-on-one. But, when I was quitting dance, essentially my career stopped before it even really started. So there are a lot of things I wouldn't have been able to be eligible for, because sometimes you have to have been dancing for 5 years, 7 years, something like that, to be paying into a scheme or similar. And so sometimes, they do that. And then I've also developed partnerships with companies where they also give a number of dancers to me, and I work again one-on-one. In terms of how the clients, I would say, trajectory works, is that everybody is on their own timeline. So I've had sessions with dancers in the dressing rooms, in between rehearsals, in their homes, which is a commonplace as well. And then also on tour in their hotel, at the hotel. So I wanted to make it so that it's on their timeline and on their availability, because also there are some courses, let's say, or degree or programs that are set times every week. And with the dancer's schedule, that is just not possible, because sometimes you might have a rehearsal or this and that. So that I would say that's how the trajectory works. The program itself is valid for, 1 to 2 years, depending on, when, what kind of relationship is established. Sometimes with a company, it might be a bit longer period. It does take time, because my program does require them to also do some assignments on their part. So it's not just, putting down, shopping for what you want, but it's also really to help them understand who are they and what are the next steps that they should take. So that hopefully answers that part of the question. In terms of consulting, these are typically brands. So they will not be typically individuals. They are, either a dancer that's gone off to create something, like a business, and they are seeking marketing support. They don't know, perhaps they want to launch something new, a new product, a new service, and they kind of don't know how to go about it. It could also be increasing enrollment in a certain endeavor. And so and that's, my set of expertise as well. And I have a small team that helps me fulfill these, goals and ambitions of these brands. So hopefully I answered it correctly.
Yes, I love it. That leads, I guess, to another thought. Who all is on your team? I guess what different roles do the different people on your team have, and how does that work together?
Yeah, so we're quite international. We're still quite small. I have, someone that is in charge of content and that supports me in marketing and social. And then I have somebody else that also helps me and supports in the client management side of things with consulting. And then I also have someone that helps me with the insight section, because that's really grown into something that, and it's, I did for the longest time try to do everything all at once, but there's only so much time in a day that we can make it work. And I do value sleep. So yeah, I had to, make a pivot as well.
I love it. Awesome. How many clients do you typically have, I guess, in each part of the business at a time?
So we represent, in terms of consulting, we represent a couple at the moment. We've been lucky in the sense that brands approach us, and for us, it's also a matter of integrity, and we definitely don't want any conflict of interest. So we will, actually a lot of the clients, our current roster, they have been with us for years. So, it actually started off as short-term projects, and then we've just really enjoyed working with one another and align in terms of vision of what they want to achieve as well. And it aligns with, our philosophy of that we really want to create good and impact and empower, the dance community. And so, yeah, on that front. And then in terms of the Dancer Index program, we have several students at the moment, and they all, it really depends. They overlap sometimes. So I will find myself, speaking with, a student in Switzerland, and then the next I'll have a student, more closer to home. In terms of the frequency, it really depends on how one student, how I would say motivated they are. So I have a student that's looking to retire soon, and they're now amping up the volume in terms of the frequency of sessions. So typically if someone's not looking to retire soon, they might pace themselves. But then on the other hand, I have dancers that, have, that are pursuing dancing full time, but just want to power through the sessions. So I don't have that control of when they want to schedule, and I leave it up to them because, again, I think I want them to be in the position of power to dictate how fast. And I also think sometimes when you go fast, it's not necessarily a good thing. You also want to pace yourself to really understand, and really understand the parts of each session and the assignments of every session, because time and continuous reevaluation also helps with this whole career transition planning.
Absolutely. Yes. What are some examples of some of the assignments that you would give?
Yeah. So I would say the first one we have, it's a story writing exercise. It's probably the most tedious one because I have dancers that, we know that when one retires, it's I have nothing. I don't know what to do. And it's that's just ludicrous. That's not true. Right. We're not starting from zero. I've moved countries. Many dancers, I think the prerequisite is almost moving countries to become a dancer. And so, what comes with that? Seeking accommodation, visa. Lots of people go through life not understanding how visas work. And so we have to go through all of that, setting up bank accounts, Some people, they start a family. Some people might, purchase their own property, adopt a dog, adopt a, pet or cat. So lots of different types of experiences that have enriched someone's life. And so through these story writing exercises, we extract the skills that we see. And then that actually guides us into session 2 to then, as I said, we deconstruct the job search process to understand the skill set. So we also want to identify like what skills do you like doing, but you might not have that much experience in. And there might be some skills you're really good at, but you don't like. And so we want to find that happy medium. Like, if I relate it to a dancer in the studio, we love performing on stage, but then there's like 20% of the time we have to be in the studio. We have to do company class, or we have to do the tedious things that we don't really want to do, but that do make up, that profession. So that would be one example of the assignments. And then as we progress, it does get easier and less, in which it's more about them educating and reading about each, let's say the industries, or let's say the careers, 60 to 80. I mean, that's a lot to narrow down. So they have to, they have certain resources that we provide that they can understand more about the realities of that career, because sometimes we pick a career, we don't understand, actually, like if, let's say my goal is to be financially stable, then perhaps freelancing or being self-employed is something I don't actually want to do. But then a dancer might pick a career that, yes, it's, a pretty straightforward studying process, but then when we come out of it, it might be freelance or something like that. And so we really, before they even get to that place of, we really try to inform them of what it looks like, what the day-to-day responsibilities, also salary expectations quite early on, so that when they pick those careers, they're very well informed, and also that they're not curious about what else is out there, that they know, okay, I really explored like all the careers in this industry. I feel really happy and content about what exists, and I'm going to pick these. And I know I'm not going to look back and wonder what if, because what if is not a good question and thought to be floating in the head, I don't think.
Yes. Awesome. Do you have partnerships with, I guess, for example, universities or with other organizations that help in the transition process as well?
At the moment, we do have partnerships with like ballet companies, and we are always trying to, that's important for us because we want to encourage that conversation. Some companies are great in which they really care about the dancer welfare and the well-being beyond the stage. However, it's, it looks differently for different, for every institution. At the beginning, I actually wanted this career transition part of Pivot Point, or Pivot Point itself, to be integrated in a ballet company. But I did get the experience to go work or do a pilot project with an institution. And it made me realize, like, because, obviously when you work in a ballet organization, there are lots of different departments, approval processes, things don't move so swiftly. And that's when I realized, okay, in order for me to be agile and quick, I need to be my own entity. But I would say the most important part, though, is the confidentiality aspect. By being incorporated with a ballet organization, I always say ballet/dance organization, I cannot guarantee the confidentiality aspect, because sometimes if a dancer says something to me, if I'm working for an organization, maybe that information is going to be, handed off elsewhere. And that can also work against the dancer. And so for me to be a third party entity is like, we are a full service, when it comes to career transition, but we also operate independently so that we can protect the interests of the dancer, whilst also helping the company achieve their goals of supporting their dancers in career transition. So partnerships, yes, I see the benefit of them, but yeah, I steered away from being, incorporated into an organization because I really wanted to protect the dancer's well-being.
I see. What fields do you tend to see dancers drift toward? Are there any patterns? Or I know obviously people have very different stories, so they can go very different directions. But have you seen any patterns or things that people who tend to choose a career in dance may also tend to choose a career in a similar or very different field?
Yeah, you're spot on there. They all vary. However, yeah, there are certain trends, and so a lot of them will gravitate towards helping others, especially the future generation, from whatever that they themselves have experienced. I'm a classic example of that. So it could be in the form of, dance training, nutrition, sports science, dance medicine, physiotherapy, etc. That's very, very common. And then the other one, for those that don't want to go down that route, more so I would say healthcare route. Then we have the ones that are more creative in the form of choreography. They might become a photographer, a costume designer, etc. And then you have like others that just go completely out into like real estate. One has become a pastry chef, activism, marketing, so many other. Yeah. So it's really because every human is unique and we're also complex. And based on our interests, experience and background, we're all going to differ. And I think that's also what's beautiful. And why, while we have Dancer Index and there are set sessions, we have designed it in such a fluid way that we can customize it and make it bespoke. So when I said 60 to 80 careers, that's going to look different from one student to another because of their preferences and because of their interests. So yeah, I mean, you also have engineers. Like it honestly, there's an unlimited career paths, and I think it also goes to show how incredible dancers are and how well they can thrive when they make a career change.
Absolutely. Do a great proportion tend to go back to school? Because for example, I did not complete a degree when I was in that process. I very briefly, was in the process of getting an accounting degree. But I don't think if I went back, I would go to accounting.
I mean, honestly, love, like finance. I think it's also good to like really know and stay on top of what you have. So degree, this is something I'm quite passionate about as somebody. So I did graduate from this, from my ballet school because it was the affiliation with a university. So there was, some sort of qualification there. I do see a lot of dancers will do some sort of degree as a safety net, so they'll do something, and then once they finished it or halfway through it, they come to realize, I don't know if I want to do this. And I've had students that I've worked with myself that have done similar things, or I've helped provide insight before they've invested a large sum into something. And then we come to realize actually their interest lies in a totally different direction. I think degrees are great if you know how that's going to benefit you. Mm-hmm. But I also think that it is time, it is money, and it is effort. A lot of that. And so if you don't know what you are doing, it's when we transition, sometimes it's like late 20s, late 30s, 40s. We don't have so much time compared to other people. So we really need to be strategic and precise, but strategic in how we use things, because certain degrees can help complement something else. I don't necessarily think degrees are always necessary depending on the career path that you want. I think that a lot of them, it's like having a life jacket on land. Is it actually helpful? Is it going to propel you in where you need to go? Or is it just there because it's, the blanket when we're born with? Like when I was younger, I had like a blanket that I was always so attached to, something like that. So we really need to ask ourselves, is it necessary? Because there are real consequences. The degree can cost thousands of dollars. You might need to get a loan. With existing, commitments, someone might have a mortgage, a family. Those are real life questions. So, I think it comes down to, do we really need it? Is it necessary for your career path? And if not, what other alternatives? Like nowadays, there's, courses on Coursera, Udemy, or I think work experience is also a wonderful way to get started. But of course, if you want to be a lawyer, a cardiologist, please go down the route of getting licensed and certified in that. Because so it really comes down, I think, Eleanor, to the career path or career paths that you want to pursue.
That makes perfect sense. Yes. I lost my train of thought.
No problem. I've been losing my train of thought because I will dive into different tangents. So yeah.
I think I located it again. So if a dancer is looking at starting to transition, how would they get connected with you? What would that process look like?
Yeah, so they can go on to our website, www.pivot-pointe.com, contact us through there, or, they can look at our programs already and get started if they want to. We also just launched a free tool and assessment to help down. It's like a quick 2-minute survey in which, they just put in, their answers. And then they get some tips and advice of, where along the career transition timeline they are. They can also follow us on Instagram, at Pivot Pointe, on Instagram or they can DM us. So, we're very reachable and approachable. I think it's important to start that conversation early, and it's a good thing. And, by starting that conversation, it's certainly by no means saying you are neglecting your dance career. Actually, a lot of our students are actively dancing and actively pursuing the career transition planning with no plans to retire anytime soon. So I think that is also a wonderful thing that's starting to change, and that we really want to continue to pioneer because, career transition takes time. It's whether you're studying, building a network, or figuring out what it is, it's going to take, a couple of years to really put that foundational work in.
I love it. As someone who, I guess your career is helping dancers transition, what are some of the issues or drawbacks of a career in ballet?
In any career in ballet, or just being a dancer, or
more specifically being a dancer?
Oh, what are the drawbacks? I think, and this is relating to myself, I think sometimes we accept things as is because, we know that ballet contracts are quite scarce. And so we want to be grateful, and we're fortunate to have that. And that's that's also a narrative that's drilled in us, since we're students. And so I think that sometimes we accept things as is and we don't speak up as often, because, when you speak up, it's like you're a difficult person, all this stuff like that. But I think it's also important to recognize that, when a dancer is employed in a company, you also have rights. It's not that you're just, silent and say nothing and, accept, whatever it is. And so I think also, so that would be one of the downsides. I mean, I think there are also other things in the industry, but I think we've also started to see, I've spoken to dancers that have spoken up, or realized, hang on, there's a clause in my contract. Actually, that's not how it is. Or you can't fire me, just like that, because this says that I'm allowed to XYZ. And so I think some dancers, and this typically happens, I think, with more seasoned dancers that have had more experience, and I think also move different companies. So I see some dancers, they also probably get, we had the goal of going to the biggest ballet companies, the most renowned. And I think there's not one designated path to get to become a professional dancer.
I agree, yes.
Just like the exploration journey that I explained for, in my career transition program, I think the same could be said for dancers figuring themselves out of what repertoire do I like? Do I actually enjoy being in an 80-person company? If I'm just standing in the core, for some people that is so rewarding and they love it. But for some other people, they've stayed there for years. So I think it's also important to ask yourselves those similar questions of what do I want? how do I envision my career as a successful career? You can have a successful career just being an apprentice, or you can have a successful career just like doing one soloist role. It doesn't have to be, it's like not everybody needs to be a CEO.
Right.
Some people are okay being just like, like a manager or something like that, or a director. It doesn't have to be all the way up. So yeah, I would say more exploration needed in one's own career, and then also learning to develop your own voice. And I get it. It's hard to go against like an institution. I'm not saying like it's easy. It's much easier said than done. But I think those are probably some not good things that, areas for improvement. I think if dancers recognized, more their self-worth, they might, might lead to more positive outcomes.
I love it. Awesome. And then what are some of the reasons that people start to look at transition? Obviously, ballet is notoriously a short career. But what other than the human body not being able to do ballet indefinitely, what are some reasons that people are looking at transitioning?
Yeah, so similar to athletes, like we have a similar trajectory, and so it's mostly in 4 areas. So deselection, that's usually when either your contract's not renewed, or what we see is when a new director comes in, they have their particular vision, and there are some dancers that don't resonate with that vision, and then they're let go. And then we also have chronological age, in which you mentioned we have a short career because there's a short lifeline, right? When we're 30, it's like you're a dinosaur, which is definitely not the case. You're still very young and youthful, but in the ballet world, there's younger girls, younger boys coming into the industry with more physical capabilities. So yeah, those, and I would say those two, typically when that happens in career transition, it is a more challenging process because there's a lot of emotional baggage that comes with that, like being fired, being let go. Yes. It's not necessarily like a positive thing, right? So, and it is often internalized by the dancer, like I'm not good enough. And that can sometimes set one back or just make it more of a struggle. It's not impossible. Like, there are other ways to move forward in that, but of course, it can be a challenge. And then the next ones, I would say injury definitely expedites the process, or it definitely starts the conversation because suddenly you've got a lot of free time. With my experience, I was injured. I became really unhappy. You're at the peak of your performance, and then suddenly overnight, you've kind of lost that, and then you kind of have to start from scratch. And so it can be very, discouraging, but that will make the dancer more aware of, okay, I need to do something because I have all this time now, whether it's studying, whether it's figuring myself out. They will begin to have that conversation. And then more oftentimes than not, they do come back and they rehabilitate, but they've already had that conversation. So then they kind of get the best of both worlds. And then we have free choice. So whether that is a dancer maybe wants to make more money, maybe they have family goals, they want to start a family, or they want to move, maybe their partner has a job somewhere else, or they simply just want to get out of the industry. Or they maybe just already envisioned a very short career. And that is usually when they really do flourish because there's no emotional baggage. They've probably, already had the idea of I need to leave soon, or I need to leave in 2 or 3 years. And ending on a high note in one's career is always a good thing because then you don't look back and you don't have what if, and you don't have doubts of what could have been. So yeah, those are the 4 paths that will lead someone to have that discussion. And that's very much the same in the world of sports as well.
That makes sense. Have you worked at all with athletes in other areas?
No, I would say not yet. Okay. I have obviously an interest in that domain too, but when I went initially to do the research of Dancer Index, I researched a lot of different, sporting organizations and how they have supported their athletes. And a lot of them have a lot of money behind them, right? And I really wanted Dancer Index, I mean, the name alone, to really cater to dancers, because I felt that, there wasn't something such as my program that was a bit more innovative, a bit more fun and exciting around career transition. And I want to make sure that I look after the demographic. And it's also personal for me, right? Like I've experienced this firsthand. I know what it feels like to, make this career transition, to have all these questions sorting in your head. Even the, question of identity, I get that, I also suffered from that. And so I think I want to really focus on dancers for the time being, but definitely athletes, similar problem. And we also would love to help them, at a future date. But for right now, we really want to prioritize, the our community, and serve dancers first.
That makes sense. What else is it important for people to know about Pivot Pointe?
We're always innovating. So we're always coming up with new ideas, new ways to spark the conversation around career transition. Or even, with my marketing background, it's also branding, like how career transition is very much like a rebrand. You're telling a new narrative of who you are. So actually my career in terms of artist management actually plays a lot into the work that I do around career transition, and kind of works holistically well together. So we're always innovating. We're always looking, for new projects that we can do. We are sort of making a pivot into a new domain, but yeah, we really want to create this ecosystem of where dancers feel safe to have that conversation, no matter where across the timeline. We're also, while we're looking at dancers more towards the end of their career, we also recognize a lot of the skills that can be developed very much early in the career, like relating to auditions, like writing,
yes.
Applying for a job in a company, non-ballet company, is very much the same as pitching yourself for an audition. You still need to write an email. You still need to understand digital literacy, which essentially means like how to work with a computer. Don't send your, resume dance CV in a Word doc, convert that to a PDF, all those little things. So we're also always looking, closely at like, okay, this is magnified. How does that look in the micro level? So, always developing, always eager to hear about, issues that dancers are experiencing. And, we really want to empower and support the dance industry as a whole.
I love it. So you, with your marketing background, I've recently, not super in-depth, but been looking and listening to marketing lecturers. I'm a big fan of YouTube as a university.
Amazing.
Yes. So what you mentioned that your marketing helps with helping dancers rebrand. So I guess, what are some of your thoughts on like the basics of marketing, or ways marketing can be helpful to dancers, even if that's not their chosen career path?
Yeah. So, branding, as we know nowadays, is very important. You look at, big companies, they put big commercials, the brand awareness the more we see of something, the more we're aware of it as well. I think nowadays everything's very accessible, and social media is another example. But I'm not saying that like if you have a large following, you're going to get a contract, but that certainly doesn't work. That certainly also works to your advantage as well, right? Because if you start to go down the freelance route, or you need to make supplementary income, like you might get partnerships or sponsorships and things like that. Rebranding for a dancer, or branding itself for a dancer, is also like the exploration work that I spoke about. So it's like, what values do you represent? Like if you're in dance, what that can also reflect to the company that you are interested in. Maybe it's the repertoire that they have, the type of leadership you want to be under. It does kind of trickle down into lots of different areas. I wouldn't say marketing itself, I think it's also important to understand how marketing works with other areas of business. So I can use a student that I have that's, interested, that is going to be retiring soon. They, it's more of an operational role that they may go into. But so when I look at that closely, it's like, okay, well, how does, marketing, if we're looking at an event, the place is hosting an event. Marketing is to get the word out. Why are we getting the word out? So that people can come to the business and the business can make more profit, right?
Yes.
And so the marketing is more like, how are we going to package this thing so it's enticing and attractive that other people will want to either buy it or in the form of a dancer, hire the dancer and things like that, how we present ourselves. So I mean, I'm fascinated with marketing, but kind of the bigger effects of how it affects a business. But yeah, it can, how you position yourself, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself on social media, even like how you market yourself on your dance CV, all those things do matter and impressions do count. And if we look on the recruiting side, it's outside of ballet, recruiters have like 7 seconds, of attention span when they look at your resume. So like you need to make it count. So I'm not sure if I fully answered that question, but I think marketing does prevail in lots of different areas. We're constantly, whether meeting a new friend, marketing ourselves.
Right.
Like you're not obviously telling them like, your elevator pitch of, I'm not pitching to everybody about Pivot Pointe, but what's my story? And we connect with others through that deeper connection. And that can also advance and progress into a viable network when you're auditioning. If you don't put yourself there, if you're not connecting with people, if you're not sharing your story, sharing your expertise, or like, I'm seeking employment, I've done this and this and this. If you don't know how to brand yourself and pitch yourself, you can't. I've seen talented dancers, not do anything when it comes to auditions, and then they don't land with a job. It's actually the ones that are very savvy, very gritty, keep on going, that are like, okay, this doesn't work, then I'm going to pitch here. I'm going to reach out to this dancer and ask them if there's, if they have any contracts, and I'm going to write the director, and I'm going to, it takes skills beyond the studio to be able to do that successfally. I don't know if I answered your question, Eleanor.
That's great. That's perfect. Okay, I have only 2 more questions, and these are the 2 that I ask to every guest. The first is, what is one thing that you are learning about right now?
What is one thing? I am, for people that know me, I'm big on health. That's like one of my values. Because if you don't, I am a 3rd generation entrepreneur. I'm in touch with my grandfather, who's like 92 and has incredible health. Looks like he's 70. And he always says to me, if you don't have your health, you have nothing. So when it comes to success, you can't enjoy your success. You can't enjoy all the money you've earned. Or if you don't have successful relationships, that's not going to keep you, in a healthy place. So I'm optimizing, my daily routine and what that looks like. 2 things in general is like my, well-being in the head, and then also recovery in the form of sleep. So I'm really trying to set better sleep hygiene, have better sleep hygiene. So that's in the form of habits like going to bed on time, waking up at the same time, because the body likes consistency. Doesn't like it when we're up late at night Netflixing. I have learned from the hard lessons of feeling not great the next day. But also like, setting the circadian rhythm. So when I'm up, I get sunlight. I also don't grab my phone because I don't want that dopamine spike, and because that can really affect the rhythm of the rest of your day. So I try to stay from my phone for the first 30 minutes and also before I go to bed, so I can really help calm my system down. And then in terms of them coming back to the mind, I'm kind of starting into meditation. So really incorporating that into my daily routine. And Eleanor, it has taken me so long to get to this point because my partner's been like encouraging me, and I'm like, I don't know. And so I've been trying to do that every day. Just like, I'm not like doing 30 minutes or an hour, anything like, unrealistic, just 10 minutes. I think it's also the intention. So you could also do a minute if you are able to really get that piece, then, and I've noticed that it does bring a lot of calmness. And I think these two things are actually foundations like to my life. When I have better sleep, obviously, I can fight off like viruses and things that come my way.
Yeah.
I feel better. I feel really well rested and ready to tackle my day. And when I'm calm in the mind, I think for dancers, anybody that's like busy in the head, there's a lot of noise up there. And so being able to like figure out a way to calm that has been extraordinary for my well-being. So yeah, that's one thing I'm really trying to finesse and not get perfect. And I think it's important that we don't get stuck on the perfectionism, because that's a tendency that we dancers have. It's great, but also can be detrimental. So some days I don't sleep well, and that's okay. And then I move on, and the next day I'll sleep hopefully better.
Yes. Oh, I definitely understand about the perfectionism. I've had to set things as not goals. This is not a goal right now.
And to almost peel it back, right? To be like, okay, it's great to have, a target, but you also want to enjoy the process to that target. And, once we achieve it, it's like, we're on to the next target. And it's like, I think being present is a skill.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. And then what is one thing you wish you could teach everyone?
Developing, this is something I'm also striving for. It will be continuous development. Developing a better relationship with yourself, because that is a relationship you're going to have forever. As we talked about perfectionism, I think we can be very hard on ourselves. And that comes down to also the self-talk that we give ourselves. If we silently criticize ourselves, or I should have done better, I should have done that, we're also stripping away all the achievements that we're doing, all the little wins of our day. By starting with yourself, and this is also a very Buddhist mindset. I'm a Buddhist, so this is, I think the general philosophy of that as well. Change starts from within. So, when you're kinder to yourself, that in effect will affect other people. So, if you develop, focus on yourself, developing a better relationship, you can then develop better relationships with others. And better relationships with others, what does that mean? Better connections. It can also come in the form of a better network, people more willing to help you out or make an introduction. But it starts from within. And it's sad it's taken me this long. I'm in my 30s to recognize, I actually need sleep. That's why I'm getting sick. Or, I need to why am I feeling anxious today? It's because I've been doom scrolling. Why am I feeling this way? It's because I'm not speaking to myself kindly. And if I connect it back to career transition, being kinder to yourself, then you can enjoy this process and understand that nothing goes according to plan. And sometimes life has something better for us.
Yes.
Better than the plan that we envisioned. And that's incredible. So yeah. I'm honestly going through this journey myself. So it's also advice for me.
Absolutely. Yes. Wonderful. Well, do you have any final thoughts or anything you want to share before we wrap up?
No, I think we covered a lot. I think I spoke a lot. So but this has been incredible. I mean, I always love talking about career transition, and I also really appreciate you diving more into my background, and kind of the bigger question at large. I think it's not just about, finding a career, but it's also finding a purpose in life and the impact that we have on the world and in our community, and then therefore the world. So yeah, thank you for this chance to connect and to chat more.
Yes, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Likewise.
I hope you enjoy this episode of the Bookish Ballerina Podcast. To learn more, follow at the.bookish.ballerina or at the.bookish.ballerina.podcast on Instagram. You can also support us and learn more at www.buymeacoffee.com/the the.bookish.ballerina. Thank you so much. See you for the next episode.